guys, we are here in freezing Annapolis, Maryland, and we're finally getting ready to see a Valiant 42. We've read a lot about them, we've seen all the pictures, but we're excited to finally step foot on one and see if it actually will check all of our boxes, because theoretically, it seems like it might. Before jumping in, let's hear some advice from professional sailor and author John KRETSCHMER.
This is super exciting. You guys are on to the Valiant 42. Fantastic boat. Certainly one of my all-time favorites. You know, you can't talk about the 42 without talking about the 40. It's the boat that put Bob Perry, maybe the most famous designer of all for cruising boats, on the map. And when it was introduced in 1973, it was called a performance cruiser. That seems a little quaint today, but it really was the case. You know, the fin keel and skeg hung rudder as a design for blue water was seen as really kind of risky, and yet the boat has certainly proven itself. The 40's been everywhere, it's done everything. It's in the Sailboat Hall of Fame. It's just an incredible boat. The Valiant 42 is a direct descendant of the 40, obviously, and in some ways a much better boat. It has more sail area. The rig went from a single spreader to a double spreader rig, and they added a stout, really robust stainless steel bowsprit. You know, I'm no fan of bowsprits, but this one's just short and just extended the fore triangle enough to really power up the boat. The 42 also has a little tweakier keel than the 40, a little more ballast. It's a bit stiffer, and it drips with quality. When you make your way around the deck, from the recessed Genoa tracks to stainless steel port lights to the lighthouse windlass, everything is top quality. The cockpit is small, like all canoe sterns. You know, Perry said he reluctantly drew it as a canoe stern because basically in the 70s, all cruising boats had to be canoe sterns. At least that was the rage. But if you look carefully at the boat, it carries its beam further aft than other double enders, and so it doesn't squat in the water when reaching and running in big seas. And the fit and finish down below is really terrific. The crew in Texas that built these boats for more than 30 years really honed their skills, and they became world-class boat builders by the time production kind of ground to a halt about 10 years ago. The first thing you notice when you come below is that this is a boat to sail offshore in. There's nowhere to fall. You know, people talk about handholds as though there's some big thing on a boat, but what you really need are hip holds. You need a way to have your hands in action and not go flying around. The Valiant 40 is well laid out to just move around the boat in any sea state. And this is a boat also that's not going to pound in a seaway. That's the beauty of this hull shape. She's going to have a soft ride. She's going to track well. And when you're below, you can function. You can cook. You can navigate. You can move back and forth without getting pitched around. And that is hugely important. Does it have the interior arrangement for raising a family on? Yes and no. I mean, I think your philosophy of less is more is really a great one, and you could definitely have kids on this boat. And really the only limits to a Valiant 42 for you guys is your imagination. She can take you anywhere you want to go.
This boat felt solid and strong like a ship, not just a toy to sail around on. There weren't any of the bells and whistles that bring to mind the concept of a yacht, like fancy woodwork or gentle lines, but it felt like it would really keep us safe while sailing offshore. Initially, I wasn't super impressed by the interior. The galley felt excessively large and the main salon felt a little cramped. But as I started to interact with each space, I began to really fall in love with its simple aesthetic and the pure quality of every aspect of the boat. Just like on deck, the interior felt super strong and each space felt purposeful and optimized for life at sea. So this galley is huge, and when I first saw it, I was kind of shocked because it takes up like almost half of the living space in the main salon. But what that gives you is a ton of storage space, a ton of food prep space. We've got this ginormous refrigerator and freezer. There's a 4-burner gimbaled stove and oven, which is just amazing. And the storage space is insane. This little storage spot right here fits more food probably than we could have fit on like all of Atticus. It's kind of ridiculous. And then you've got storage up here, and then lots of place for our plates and cutlery and everything. So I really do love this galley. I also really like how I'm kind of like nested in here. A lot of the other galleys that we've seen felt more open and bigger, and I think that's because they sacrificed storage and counter space for the ability to walk around. But when I'm cooking, I don't really move around that much. I'm in one spot. I do food prep, cook, dishes, done, you know? I would love to cook underway on this boat, which is something I thought I would never say because I hated cooking when we were underway on Atticus. It was not fun. And another thing I really like about this galley is the ventilation. There's a huge hatch right above me. This is going to be so amazing in the tropics. And we've also got a huge, like, jumbo-sized porthole right here in the galley, and in fact it extends all the way forward on the starboard and port sides of the boat. So ventilation on this boat seems like it'd be pretty awesome.
As for the nav station, it's almost perfect. It's got a really big space here for getting work done. It's comfortable. The seat is really spacious. I don't feel cramped. You got the backrest here. The one bummer about it is that the curvature of the hull affects my right foot and my right leg as I'm sitting here. So my left foot and leg, they're perfectly comfortable. They're on flat ground, but my right leg is kind of at a diagonal. There's definitely some workarounds that we could probably figure out. I think if we raised the seat and then put a little like flat box under my feet, creating a little bit of a flat space, that could probably work, but it would require some doing, some figuring out. I really like this window too, because you can close it pretty easily. So if you want privacy, you can do that and then close the door and you're totally shut off from the rest of the boat. But if privacy isn't something you're looking for, if it's a really hot day in the tropics, this would be really, really nice. Because the whole idea of having a separate room is cute until you're like really desperately uncomfortable because you're just sweating all over the place, you know?
Yeah, and you're right next to the companionway here, so you get a lot of fresh breeze coming in.
It's a huge quarter berth too. We have more than enough space.
Coming in, buddy. I could live in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding.
So the first thing I like about this head is the location. When you're underway in rough seas, there's a lot more motion that you're going to experience when you're forward in the boat. On Atticus, our head was way forward near the V-berth, so I hated going into that head when we were underway. So a lot of the times I would just try to go in the cockpit or off the back of the boat, and it wasn't safe and it wasn't pretty. So having a really nice, secure, cozy head that's really close to where you're going to spend the most of your time sailing on deck is really awesome. And as for the shower, there's a separate shower stall right in front of me behind this door. So I really like that the shower is separate from the toilet. So again, every time I shower, I'm not going to get everything in my bathroom totally dirty. It is a little bit snug. I'd be curious if you can fit in here, bud. For me, it's like perfect size.
Yeah, so I do fit in here, but I wouldn't fit if it weren't for this hatch that's right above me. But, I mean, shoot, man, I think that's a win. It's a little tight, but not nearly as tight as, say, the Naiad. Like, I've got full shoulder width all the way around. And then, particularly if I sit down, then I've got more than enough room in here to just, you know, totally get myself. And what I really like about it is that it has, like, a fiberglass or a plastic pan at the bottom of the shower. Because there is that fiberglass pan, you're not going to really worry so much about rotting issues. So it's stuff like that that I think Valiants do really well, making their boats age really, really gracefully. This is going to be one of the main drawbacks of the Pullman berth version of the Valiant 42, is that we don't have a whole lot of space here on the port settee. We could definitely both eat dinner here, but it would be like tight.
Yeah, and plus like the person on the inside, I'm like kind of stuck here, you know?
Yeah. So on the other version of the Valiant 42, which is the V-berth version, this settee extends further forward, and then here on the aft side, it kind of has an L configuration. So you could seat probably 3 people really tight knit, and then 2 people very comfortably. This will just be one of those drawbacks of the Pullman version.
So even though this space feels a little bit cramped initially, realistically, we're not gonna have like 10 people over all the time. So if we turn out to like this Pullman berth, I think it's a sacrifice in space that's definitely doable.
So this would make a great sea berth. We could just put a lee cloth here. Also, the other settee can be a sea berth, even though it's short. There's a little nook that you can open up so that your feet fit into that. And also the water tanks are located beneath the settees, and the fuel tanks are located aft under the cockpit lockers. All the tanks in this boat can be removed without having to remove any furniture. The designers literally thought ahead like 20 years and thought, well, in 20 years, it'd be really hard to get the tanks out, so let's put them right here where it'd be easy. And that's that kind of mindset that would make a boat like this really valuable to us 20 years after the build. Another thing I love about this boat is that the chain plates are super easy to inspect. Plus, the chain plates are bolted to fiberglass knees that are fiberglass to the hull, which is like, oh, I love that so much, because if there is any leaking that occurs, there's nothing that the chain plate's connected to that can rot. So, this is one of the floorboards that gives you access into the bilge. And I just wanted to pull it to show you just how amazing the build quality is on these Valiants. I'm just so blown away. You look at the actual flooring, it's actual teak and holly. Like, we're talking 1/2 inch teak. That's nuts. This thing is heavy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've never seen this in my life. Normally floorboards are such pieces of crap. They're thin and they like creak underfoot. Listen to this. That's the floor. Like, it sounds like I'm banging on a tree or something. You know what I mean? I'm just so impressed with this boat. Like, it feels like a tank, but it's designed to be a performance cruiser.
Yeah, so this Pullman berth initially looks pretty small, but I fit into it great. And once I'm up here, it actually feels really spacious. I like having my own little porthole. One complaint about this area would probably, I would love to have a hatch right above us while we're sleeping, because other than this porthole, I feel like there's not that much ventilation in here.
Yeah, and as I walk into this Pullman berth area, the first thing I think is it's not very spacious. Like, the walkway here is really narrow. I don't have a lot of room for my feet. The curvature of the hull really starts to get into the way here pretty soon. And then the Pullman berth itself is really high up. It's about at my waist height. Desiree actually has to use this little step to get up into the Pullman berth. But what you do get, because they've put the Pullman berth really high, you get a ton of storage down here, right? So it's like they've got the priorities of the blue water long distance voyager in mind. This is another kind of interesting feature of the Pullman berth model of the Valiant 42, and that's that they have like a sail locker up here all the way forward. It's pretty cool. Like, the forward hatch is right here, so you could keep your spinnaker right here. You could keep like a code 0 or some sort of a drifter up here, and it's right where you need it to be. No more like pulling them out of the cockpit locker and carrying them forward. It makes using a spinnaker a lot easier. Also, it frees up a lot of storage space in the cockpit lockers because the sails don't need to be back there. This could also be like a really nice line locker. They've got life jackets in here, some emergency equipment. It definitely takes up a lot of space, right? So instead of having that larger settee, you end up having this large sail locker, right? Which, if you want to have a large settee, this might be a total waste of space. Because the forward hatch is right here, it's not right above your main sleeping berth. In the tropics, when there's not a lot of wind, you really want to have a large hatch like right above you. And I really like how the companionway stairs just hinge up and hold in place. So this gives me really good access to the forward part of the engine. I can get to the fuel filters real easily. I can get to the fuel manifolds here. So I really like this a lot. But there's another way to access the engine that I like even more on this boat. So it's a little bit weird because it's in the head, but this door here leads to more engine access, and a really nice machinery space. So it's a little awkward getting in, but once I'm in, this is super awesome. It's comfortable to sit here. I've got plenty of space around me. I can access the engine, I can access a lot of the major systems on the boat. So this is like a dream come true for me. And the boat also has a generator, and then you can access that through this little door here. The access for the generator isn't perfect, like it'd be hard to get to it from where I am, but you can also get to it from side panels that are accessed through the cockpit lockers. You can access it, you can work on it, but it's not super convenient.
The interior of this boat really grew on me, and by the end of our tour, we both felt like this could be the boat we've been waiting for. But the Pullman layout really did have a very small living space in the main salon, which would be a huge bummer for our future family. And the nav station wasn't quite ideal for our needs. That said, I still loved it so much that I'm still gonna give this boat 4 out of 5 stars for livability.
So this cockpit, I think it's my favorite cockpit so far. It's really like a seaworthy cockpit. It's not designed to have a lot of guests over, you know, it's designed to do really well offshore, I think. First of all, I can very easily get to these really hefty winches while at the helm station. All the boats that we've seen, you can get to the winches, but these ones you can get to easily. Like, I don't even need to move my feet. I can just lean over. The cockpit's not very big, so if it were to fill up with water, it couldn't really fill up with very much water, which is a really good thing. There is a wind vane on the back. It's a monitor wind vane, which would be great. I mean, I bet you this boat would sail really well with a wind vane, and that way we could save electricity while underway. And then there's this really beefy arch back here, which I like this thing a lot. You can see it's super solid. It doesn't rack back and forth much. The solar panels that are on it are kind of old and pretty small, but I think that this would be a really great platform to have a pretty good solar array. Now, as I'm sure you're aware by now, I am a really tall dude, and so the fact that I've got headroom to spare beneath this bimini is amazing. Also coming up forward here, this hardtop and Dodger would be great for some semi-flexible solar panels. It's super strong. This handhold is great. You can see I have clearance with the boom, so the boom wouldn't hit my head. And I feel like that is actually a huge safety factor. Of all the things that are gonna go really, really wrong for you on a sailboat, I feel like getting smacked by the boom is really, really high up on that list. As for going forward from the cockpit, again, I've got these super solid handholds on this hard Dodger, and the side decks on this boat do feel really substantial. Like, they're super wide, easy to walk on. The rigging here isn't too hard to get around. It's not like a jungle gym. One bummer is to reef the main, you have to come up here to the boom, and there's a winch and then your 2 reefing lines. But you can see I'm a little exposed up here. There's no granny bars. I can't really lean against the shrouds. They're too far away. You'd almost want to like come up here on your knees, you know, and do it like this. That'd be a little bit safer. That's one bummer about this arrangement. And here's something that you don't see every day. Really solid, beefy midship cleats. I don't know why they don't install these on boats more often, but it's really handy to have not just a cleat amidship, but have a really big solid one, because you never know when you're gonna have to have like a breast line running directly athwartship, and it's gonna be taking a lot of load. Also for spring lines, it's really handy. And then they've got this really nice, neat chock that lets the line run through the tow rail without chafing. And here's another little thing you just don't see every day. There's a decent bulwark, like a couple inches high, which is great because if you were to slide, your foot would hit this and help you avoid falling off the boat. But it also has this aluminum tow rail that you can attach snatch blocks to or tie lines to or whatever. I mean, this sort of thing is super convenient. Also, the sides of the coach roof on the Valiant 42 are relatively vertical, and typically the sides of a coach roof are going to be more diagonal. The nice thing about this verticality though is that the opening ports are going to be nearly vertical, and when it rains, the water won't really make its way in to the port. and so you can keep them open while it's raining, which is a huge plus. And another thing that I love about this boat, and that I think just makes it a no-nonsense blue water cruiser, is that there's zero wood on deck. Zero. None whatsoever. Like no handrails, no cap rail, no dorade boxes, nothing. And I love that. I mean, sure, it might suffer a little bit aesthetically, but the amount of time we'll save not having to keep up the varnish, not having to deal with rot issues that have accumulated over the years is just incredible.
I just got really excited because I just noticed this is like the perfect platform to do like a high intensity workout. Like, look at this. So much room, jumping jacks, get my yoga on up here. That just made this boat go way up.
And then walking up onto this foredeck, it's clear, there's not a whole lot up here. There's a lot of space for a dinghy, so you wouldn't have to compromise on the size of your dinghy. And here's something that I really love, which is raised lips for the deck hatches. This is just gonna make it so that water doesn't creep in to the hatches over time. You're less likely to develop a leak in general because water doesn't pool around the hatch. And the boat is a cutter rig, which is perfect for us. The head sail is on a furler, but the stay sail isn't on a furler. In fact, the inner stay here is on a removable lever so that you can remove it if you want to. I'm not that into that with a foredeck that's this big with this much room for a dinghy. To me, I'd rather have a permanent inner forestay with a furled stay sail. That way it'd just be so easy to do a lot of your sail handling from the cockpit and to have a lot of versatility at your fingertips. Another thing I like up here is the anchor platform / bowsprit. It's not very long, it's super freaking robust and strong, it's made out of stainless steel tubing, and it gives you a really nice anchor platform. Gets the anchors out away from the hull, you can have more than one anchor up here. It also helped to fix the weather helm issue that the Valiant 40 had, so it's one of the major differences between the Valiant 40 and the 42 is this bowsprit and the fact that there's a little bit more effort forward in the sail plan. This is an incredible boat. It was designed to sail to the far reaches of the globe and to keep the crew safe and comfortable along the way. I do, however, feel like the current mainsail reefing arrangement would leave the crew a little more exposed than I'd like, and I would definitely break more than one toe on those midship cleats. But those concerns just aren't enough to keep me from giving this boat 5 stars for sailability. So when I look at the numbers for the Valiant 42, I see a very well-balanced boat. It's got a moderate displacement and narrow beam, which means that it should be pretty comfortable offshore and yet sail well in light winds. The moderate length, deep fin keel with a really nice foil shape should give the boat great windward performance. And the respectable ballast to displacement ratio means that the boat should be pretty stiff and not heel over too much. The modest sized skeg gives a good amount of support to the rudder while adding a minimal amount of wetted surface area below the waterline. Although the one downside to this arrangement is that the prop is really exposed, which means that there's several scenarios that could lead to us damaging the strut and basically leaving us without an engine until we could carry out repairs. Now, for a canoe stern, the boat actually has a relatively long waterline length, which is good for top speed, as well as a fairly wide stern section, which gives the boat more interior volume in the after part of the boat. I think that this boat is as near to perfection as any cruising sailboat that was ever made. It balances both performance and comfort offshore in a very elegant way, and for that reason, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 for design.
Now let's hear from our broker, Bernie Jackets.
And Valiant is a thing that's very close to me and very close to my heart. In 2008, I commissioned Valiant to build me hull number 181. It took 1.5 years to build, and the price without sales or anything electronics came out to over $600,000. A Valiant is an actual stick-built boat where every piece of furniture is glassed into the hull, every piece. For a monolithic structure. There's a grid system every 24 inches latitudinally, longitudinally, all the way down the line. In 37 years of continuous production, they never had a hull, deck, keel, rudder, hull, deck, joint mass failure. That says a lot. There have been more circumnavigations of Valiant than any other boat ever built times 10. Everything is accessible. Every backing plate, every chain plate, every tank, water or fuel can be taken out without cutting anything apart. Every system is accessible on a boat. This is what makes it so unique. Anybody who knows how to sail can sail a Valiant at 175-mile days effortlessly. It's easily driven by wind vane or autopilot. It's not a big boat, but it's a comfortable boat. And I have to say that after selling 60% of every Valiant I'd ever sold, 10 of them circumnavigated with a husband-wife team successfully. It is the rich man's pickup truck. You throw your crap into it and you go anywhere. It's not a cheap boat. You can get a good used Valiant 42 today between $170 low and this $275,000, $300,000 if it's really well equipped. The Valiant is designed by the ocean and the requirements of an ocean-going vessel. So that's my take on a Valiant.
So this was an incredible boat. It checks a lot of our boxes. It definitely prioritizes comfort at sea versus comfort at anchor. And it's in such great condition and it was built so well. So it would also check our box of spending more time sailing and less time working on the boat.
And as for priority number 3, which is a good home for a family of 4 for the next 10 years, it just about checks that box. I mean, the boat would be a great home. The only problem is that the main salon area is really, really small. And that would be fine for the 2 of us. That'd be fine for 2 of us and a baby. But I'm thinking the 2 of us, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, that would be really small. But because that's really the only problem that we have with this boat, we're really interested in seeing the other layout, the V-berth layout of the Valiant 42, where the main salon seating area is a lot more spacious.
Luckily for us, we have a friend in the area who just bought a Valiant 42 with the Queen V-berth layout, and he's invited us to come aboard for a little sail and to just kind of get the feel of the different layouts. So we are so excited.
So next week we'll see if we feel like the V-berth layout of the Valiant 42 is the boat for us, and if it is, there are a couple on the market that we might start to pursue. So this is super exciting.
Yeah.
It feels like it might be our next boat, and we hope you guys join us next week to see if that's going to be the case.
I can't wait.
We'll see you next week.